Welcome to Vainglory Analytics Video 11, How the Husk Happens. Today's video is about this question. What exactly is going on when Slumbering Husk does its job? Fair warning, this video is just straight up nerdery. There is not a lot of practical gameplay purpose to this one at all. I just had a curiosity and investigated it, and I'm reporting. That's all. If you were planning to do any analytics regarding Slumbering Husk yourself, this video will be useful to you. If not, well, I don't blame you for watching just to enjoy some equations. Okay, so let's remember what Slumbering Husk is. It's a defense item you can buy that gives you 500 max health plus this passive. Taking 20% of your max health and damage over 1.5 seconds fortifies your remaining health for 2.0 seconds on a 25-second cooldown. Okay, but what does that mean? It says that it's to prevent burst damage, which makes sense because it activates when you take 20% of your health as damage in a short time, which is exactly what burst is. But when does Husk activate? Before the damage? After? During? Let me explain my question with some pictures. Let's say I'm Ringo, with 100 max health and an active Slumbering Husk. I know, Ringo always has way more health than that. I'm just picking really easy numbers for an example. Then Taka shows up with his X-Retsu. Let's pretend it's going to do 50 damage. Again, it always does more than that, but nice round numbers as an example. What does Husk say it will do? Taking 20% of your max health and damage over 1.5 seconds fortifies your remaining health for 2 seconds. Like I said, that might happen before the damage, after it, or during it. Here's what I mean. Maybe the Husk activates late, meaning like this. Step 1, Ringo takes the 50 burst damage with no protection offered by the Husk. Step 2, the Husk notices that he took over 20% of his health as damage. And then step 3, the remainder of his health is fortified as the Husk activates. I call that late because the damage all happens first and then the Husk activates, maybe to protect against Taka's next attack. Or maybe that's not how it works. Maybe it activates early, like Step 1, the Husk notices that 50 damage is coming in, which is more than 20% of Ringo's health. So the Husk activates before the damage gets there, and all Ringo's health is fortified before the damage strikes, so that by Step 4, Ringo takes 50 damage onto his fortified health, which is double durable health, so he only takes 25 damage really. I call that early because the Husk switches on before the damage gets there. But there's even another option. Maybe it works like this. The damage from the X-Retsu comes in sort of one hit point at a time. So like Step 1, after 20 hit points of it have smacked Ringo, we go to Step 2, where the Husk turns on because 20% of Ringo's health was taken. So all his remaining health is fortified. And so in Step 4, when Ringo is supposed to take the other 30 damage from the X-Retsu, it's happening to fortified health, so it's only half as bad, or 15 hit points of damage. Notice that the definition of the Husk doesn't really help us figure out which one of these three ideas is right. It just says that the Husk turns on when taking 20% of your max health and damage. If anything, it sounds a little like the late paradigm, actually. So maybe that's the right one? But these are very different possibilities. Early Husk would be the best for Ringo, converting the damage to only 25, leaving him 75 health remaining. Late would be the worst for Ringo, letting all 50 damage through, leaving him only 50 health, and the middle one is in the middle, of course. Well, we can figure out how the Husk works by doing some in-game experiments. To know what to expect from these experiments, we need some formulas about X-Retsu damage. Let's use X to mean the level to which Taka has upgraded his X-Retsu, and C to mean how much crystal power Taka has. So C starts at 0 and goes up as Taka buys stuff. When we look up the definition of X-Retsu, we find that its damage formula looks like this. Actually, if you look on the internet now, the formula is different because I actually did these experiments a while ago, and I'm just pulling them out of my files now to make a video, so these numbers are from a few versions back of the game, but the definition of the Husk hasn't changed, so we can still use them to learn about the Husk. Of course, any crystal power damage is going to be reduced by Ringo's shield stats, which go up with Ringo's level and items. Our experiments won't have Ringo buying any items, so we just care about his level. We'll use R to stand for that. Earlier videos in this series have explained armor and shield formulas, so we'll just pull this one out of the archives. The damage ratio for crystal power damage is 100 divided by the victim's shield, which for Ringo at the time of these experiments was 114 plus 6 times his level. Multiplying those two formulas together gives us the formula for how much damage we'd expect to see pop up as little blue numbers over Ringo's head when Taka hits that X-Retsu. That is, if there's no slumbering husk, or if it's not active at the time. So, before we go introducing the husk to the experiments, let's just do some tests to make sure these formulas work on their own. A Taka with level 1 X-Retsu and no crystal power attacks a level 10 Ringo. The Ringo has a husk, but it's not ready to activate. Our formula says he should do 144 damage after rounding to a whole number. Let's watch. I've captured the key moment of that video in a screenshot, and you can see the 144 damage is exactly what happens. So far so good. Let's try some other experiments. A level 1 X-Retsu with 120 crystal power and a level 10 Ringo, 261 damage is predicted, and that's exactly what happens in-game. Okay, one last sanity check. A level 2 X-Retsu, 360 crystal power and a level 10 Ringo, 557 expected damage, 557 actual. Great, our formulas work, we can be confident in them and use them to investigate the husk. Let's use a level 1 X-Retsu, 240 crystal power and a level 10 Ringo. We can see from the screenshot, which was taken when the damage was dealt, that in this experiment, Ringo's husk did activate. His health is shown in white, meaning that it's fortified. So the husk is in play here, whatever that means, which we're about to find out. If Husk follows the late model and activates after the damage, then we can use the same formula we did before, because all the damage will get through before the Husk turns on. But if the Husk follows the early model, then we have to check to see if it would even turn on in this case. 20% of Ringo's health in this case is 333 hit points, which is below what the X-Retsu would do naturally, so the Husk would turn on. It would fortify Ringo's health, and he would take only half the damage, or 189, in the early model. If the Husk follows the middle model, then the X-Retsu would do 20% of Ringo's health as damage up front, plus some reduced damage. How much? Well, we subtract the 333 from the full damage to see what's left after the 20% of Ringo's health is taken away, and that would be 45 hit points of damage that would hit the fortified health from the Husk. So the total damage would be the first 20% of Ringo's health, or 333, plus half the remaining damage, or 45 divided by 2, giving about 356 total. So which one of these actually happens? Well, the in-game experiment shows 356 damage. The middle road. Yes, the Husk is actually splitting a single X-Retsu into two chunks of damage. The Husk activates itself halfway through an X-Retsu, allowing the first 20% of Ringo's health unblocked, then fortifying his health before the rest of the X-Retsu damage arrives. The only thing more surprising might be the amount of blood Ringo can lose and stay on his feet. Let's just do one other check to make sure. Level 1 X-Retsu, 360 crystal power, level 11 Ringo, Husk activating when damaged. Here are the predictions for the three Husk models. And the experiment shows, again, the middle model predicts it right. So we have confirmed the Husk does not activate late, that is after the damage, nor does it activate early, that is before the damage, but it activates in the middle, that is during the damage, even if it has to split a single unit of burst damage like an X-Retsu into two halves to do that. In summary, when damage comes in, first any armor or shielding of the victim is applied, then if what's left is still over 20% of the victim's health and a Husk is ready to activate, the damage gets split into two amounts, one being 20% of the victim's max health and the other being whatever damage is left over. The 20% is unaltered and allowed through as is. The remainder is altered. It's cut in half because it's applied to fortified health. These two numbers are then added together, producing the actual damage that will be done to the victim. For all my nerds out there, we can put some formulas down. If D is the incoming damage and H is the victim's max health, we get 0.2H as the first damage quantity, and D minus that as the rest. The 0.2H is unaltered, and the remainder is cut in half, resulting in a total of 0.5D plus 0.1H as our formula for what the Husk lets through. Keeping in mind that this whole flowchart only applies when a Husk activates, so in reality we should write if the Husk is ready to activate and the incoming damage is over 20% of the victim's health, then the actual damage becomes 0.5D plus 0.1H. Otherwise, the Husk doesn't do anything, and the incoming damage is applied like normal. I warned you this video was all nerdery. There you go, that's the result. But I'm already most of the way done with another video that will have much more to say about the everyday play of the Vainglory player, so stay tuned for that one coming out soon.